Hello, everyone. I'm Anupriya Kukreja, and I'll be presenting on the topic Rhythm Before Dialogue Music, Nightlife, and the Politics of Cross Cultural Peace on the Dance Floor. I presented this initially at Mediators Beyond Borders International Arts Subcommittee, Art and Peacebuilding Subcommittee, actually. And I will be sharing on this topic based on my background as a research writer and researcher in peace building and conflict resolution. So, for several years, I worked as a research writer for magazines like The Behavioral Scientist, the APA newsletter for Peace Psychology, where I was the editor in chief. And I've also worked as a researcher at the Morton Deutsch Center for Conflict Resolution under Dr. Peter Coleman, where I published a paper on cross cultural conflict research with Dr. Coleman and John Paul Lederach. So, given my background as a researcher and my life experiences as a musician, I hope to deliver this talk with my combined and blended background in both these worlds. Here, I will be looking at sampling and collaboration as cross cultural integration, inclusivity as inquiry, and journalism and narrative storytelling as my source, more so than scholarship. In the future, I hope to build and create scholarship on these topics. I have many, many study ideas and designs that I hope to pursue at some point. But for now, I'm going to rely on my life experiences and some of the media coverage on these topics. So going back to my, I guess, history in music, these are pictures of me when I was 13 years old, wearing a Pink Floyd shirt, which is, of course, a classic rock band that most of you may have heard of, that I was really obsessed with. I started picking up on the guitar when I was young and I was performing. So these are performances of me as a 13-year-old in middle school, I think eighth grade, on stage. And this is me when I was 14, playing, I think, Comfortably Numb at a uh, music school recital. And I'm sure you've all heard this song, Brick in the
We
Wall.
don't need no education. We don't need no thought control.
So this is, of course, one of the songs that really brought me into the scene. There was Dire Straits and Deep Purple and so many bands that I looked up to, and rock music was definitely a huge part of my identity. Soon there was a transition to electronic music, which was initially very uncomfortable, but of course, with loss comes something new. And I began listening to an artist called Bonobo, whose actual name is Simon Green. He's based in the UK, and a lot of his music was sampling heavy. So there was a lot of sounds in his tracks that were definitely not Western. And they were, between South Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And one of his really popular songs called Bambaro Fit Koyo. I'm gonna play like a short clip of it. It's from Nawa Music in Morocco, and he's really collaborated with this group. And in one of his interviews, he was asked about how he's able to collaborate while respecting the cultures he's collaborating with. So anyway, Bonobo is someone who collaborates closely with other artists. He also picks up a lot of sounds globally without necessarily having traveled to those places. And I think in this part of the interview, is mentioned. He has mentioned that we sat down, talked about it a lot. They adopted a traditional piece of Nawa music for this track to make it non-secular and something that was not two cultures clashing in a way that was insensitive to anyone. It's a really groovy track, and this is just one of his many, many world music esque tracks. Uh, so yeah, there's a lot that Bonobo did that really inspired me and pulled me into electronic music, which is something I was very resistant to initially. And he also has collaborated with multiple artists like Bajka, for whom her relationship with Asia is like the main theme of her poetry. And this is another beautiful track that they have together.
Blossom the days to come. Move away from your western guns. Travel towards eastern suns. Far above all earthly goals. I pledge for creation's soul. Spirit finds fresh morning
Move
and
away
bird.
from the western sun, travel towards eastern sun, far above the earth will go. I pledge for creation. Yeah, Bajka is of course very, very connected to her roots. Um, she was born in India, raised in Portugal and South Africa. She's a long-time collaborator with Bonobo. And then this picture is of Bonobo with Arooj Aftab, who's a Pakistani electronic musician. So anyway, Bonobo is really doing a lot of cross-cultural collaboration. I guess he's definitely uh, my, I guess, biggest inspiration. And this takes me to like what house music really is, which is one of the most popular genres of electronic music. And the emphasis I want to create here is that it emerged in Chicago's underground club culture with predominantly black and Latino crowds, gay black and Latino crowds, really the people who belong to the most minority and marginalized communities, who came together to dance in otherwise heavily segregated club scene. And I think this is very relevant because today electronic music has become so much more mainstream. Raves and the club scene is considered also very inaccessible and elite. However, the roots really go back to marginalization. Speaking of which, hip hop has also come out of a lot of, I guess, hardship and times of poverty and really adversary. So the origins of hip hop music are also, in the Bronx in New York City, amongst very low income communities of color, primarily the black community. And this was, of course, a well known story of DJ Kool Herc experimenting on his dual turntable and mixer at his sister's graduation party, mixing on the spot. And that whole experience evolved into what rap is today. So I feel like the roots of house and hip hop music come very much from minority and marginalized communities of color, and as well as blended themes of gender and queerness in there. And hip hop is, of course, a well-known genre which is has a foundation of sampling. So um, I'm gonna play a quick tune. This is by Timbaland. It's called Indian Flute. It's also a bit infamous for how he hasn't totally credited the artist or the origins of this tune, but it is a beautiful track. So I'm gonna play a little bit of it.
I got my eyes on you. Baby, let me tell you that you are the truth. I love your Indian food. Ooh, da-da-doo, da-da-doo, da-doo. Sing it to me.
तुझसे हमारा मिलन था
Sing it to me.
तब से हमारा प्यार हुआ
Sing it to me.
जरा से चुम लूं तो क्या
But I can't understand the word you're saying.
बड़ी मुश्किल है अब बचना
Baby, I've been eyeing you way from afar.
तेरी अखियों में सब कुछ देखा
Thanks for the props, but to me, you the star.
न जाने क्यों मैं तुमसे भूल न जा
Let's get it on.
Yeah, so there's clearly heavily a lot of sampling happening there, to a lot of, I guess, pride and excitement and fusion that's wonderful. And yet there's questions of really giving credit to those who created these original sounds. So anyway, I really got into hip hop during my undergrad days, and I wrote this article right when I was really getting into it. This was an interview, or rather a conversation, with a b-boy called Astik back in New Delhi in India, which is where I'm from. And Astik has been part of the hip hop community very, very deeply. And this conversation happened at a documentary screening. The documentary was called Gully. Gully means street. And gully rap or street rap in India had really become a thing. in those years. It had just sort of begun, and it was a very exciting time. And Asik here really talks about him being a very early curator, early dancer, early organizer, early mentor to a lot of budding b-boys across India. And the fascinating part is like very humble communities where people do not have a lot of access to education, and how Asik's been really able to do a lot of great work. For instance, he's featured on the Rolling Stones India website on this article about the Delhi Funk Circle, which is a jam that began in 2013 that he founded. He's a popper and b-boy himself, and initially the jam just began with 20 participants, and it grew to a very large community. And having been to some of these myself, I know that they're very, very active. There's battles and there's very beautiful collaborations happening in these spaces. And in my conversation with Astik, he emphasized a lot about what hip hop was and wasn't. So, lyrics endorsing and glorifying capitalism, objectifying women were not hip hop. For Astik, hip hop had to connect to common people, speak for a cause, have powerful lyrics, have messages on socialism, suffering, and change. And he spoke a lot about how there's some really great b-boys in villages just very close to where I went to school in Sonipat, which is a town close to Delhi, and how he trains those who are truly from the grassroots, who don't have a lot of privilege, go to studios to learn dancing, and who don't have the privilege to go to studios to learn dancing, uh, and have very little access to education. So, interestingly, I brought back my love and obsession for Bonobo in this conversation with Astik, and he convinced me that yes, you can actually dance to Bonobo's music, which is typically slower, even though now Bonobo does a lot of up tempo house stuff, but early on he did not. So, I actually attended a hip hop dance workshop in Dwarka organized by Astik, and he wasn't kidding. There was really a range of music being played, from really low beats, down tempo, ambient, trip hop. There's so much emphasis on just flow and creation and connecting with other artists and your own artists within, rather than learning steps and choreography, which really resonated. As luck could have it, that conversation with Astik, he mentioned Divine and Raja Kumari, who were also very early members in the Indian rap scene. Immediately went back, had a conversation with my roommate, discovered who these artists were, found out they're actually performing very close to my parents' home in the city that very weekend. And I immediately checked out Raja Kumari's music. She's an artist born and raised in California who now collaborates with Indian gully rappers. And she had these really beautiful cross cultural roots mirrored in her beautiful fusion of Indian classical tunes with hip hop beats. And I was so excited to see her that weekend. I even ended up chatting with her just days after I found out about her existence. Um, and it was like this amazing momentum and energy within me where I could feel the hip hop revolution in India beginning and a strong eagerness to be part of it. So this is Raja Kumari. This is Divine. Divine is from Dharavi in Mumbai, which is a very large slum, world-renowned large slum. And Divine has really made it huge. Divine has a song with Nas, and that's just part of all the beautiful things he's been able to achieve the past few years. Uh, he's really, I think, pioneered the Indian rap scene. And Raja Kumari and he have a song called City Slums, which is an amazing, amazing song. Of course, later on, Raja Kumari did some weird cultural appropriation and had some casties lyrics in her tracks, which I think could have been avoided. But this was definitely a very exciting time for me. I'm going to play a section of the song City Slums.
Run and tell your mommy. The streets gon' rap-a-pum-pum, rap-a-pum-pum, rap-a-pum-pum. It's coming from the gully. It's coming from the city slums, slums, city slums, slums, city slums, slums.
गली सड़क जबानी चाय में पानी हाथ में कारगारी नाकाब खाली भारी थाली सर पे जिम्मेदारी एक ही तो मालिक बाकी कुछ दिन वाले कर
Okay, I can go on and just sing the whole thing, but that's just a small tidbit of their work. And this is a picture of me with Raja Kumari when we had this conversation about her routines and so on. And I was so excited to have this really interesting outfit with a lehenga blouse, which is an Indian blouse essentially, embroidered and stuff, and a leather skirt and a little tika, which is Indian jewelry, and bangles. So I was really in my, and I still am very much in my fusion era. So gully rap stuff happened, and then did my first rap performance, I think the same month, where I performed my song Haus Khas Bar Bar. So this was a season where I was creating a lot, and I had also just started performing. And Hoskaz is it's like a sort of like an East Village in Delhi, except it's a historical fort overlooking a lake and has a lot of little bars and cafes in there, which would host a lot of parties and dance nights. So yeah, this is me performing that song. I do not have a video right now. It's 2019. And going back to fusion, so right now Indo Warehouse is doing super well, which is Indo as in Indian, and Warehouse goes back to like house music. And this is Kahani, a producer who combines a lot of like Bollywood music with house, and he has some amazing music out there. I'm gonna play a short section of one of his tracks, Bhumro. Bhumro is a very like folk Indian Bollywood song, which I think got really famous in the early 2000s. And he like flipped this into a dance music track. So I'm going to play like a small section of it. And I was actually at the first Indo Warehouse in New York in, I want to say, March 2023. And it was fabulous, fabulously curated. And now they're at Boiler Room, they're huge. But really, there's a huge movement to combine Latin music with house, Indian music with house, and African music with house. And we're onto something with these fusions. Yeah, so that's Indo Warehouse. And then to look at, I guess, festival culture and club culture a little bit closely, the Behavioral Scientist magazine, where I had worked for some time, has an article about how keeping up with the Jonases at Burning Man for the collective benefit has been an interesting phenomena. So essentially, Burning Man is a very famous music festival where folks who attend, they're called burners, and there's a very interesting social norm, cultural experience going on there, where it's much less about showing off what you have materially and much more so about service, from what I hear. And what this article argues is that Burning Man has harnessed the human desire for relative positioning strategically in a way that actually favors pro-social behavior. Now, how does that happen? So, while it may seem like harmless competition, economist Robert Frank, author of Darwin Economy, sees this type of consumption as a destructive arms race, which is true. We want to work long hours to buy a bigger house in order to get to the best neighborhood school, and we're all just trying to be in this rat race of being materially better than each other. But what if the rat race was about not being materially better than each other, but being better people and serving each other more? So, using that same default heuristic for social comparison and desire for, I guess, upward social mobility for something different. So, camps at Burning Man are also in the arms race, but the race is not around personal consumption. Nobody cares how cool your tent is or what bike you have. In fact, it's not socially acceptable to talk about these things. The arms race is around your contribution to society. Where do you camp is quickly followed by what do you give. So, what if we were all competing on how much good we did for society versus how much money we made, or how much you know wealth we've created, and where we are at materially in this world, essentially, or what kind of brands we wear, what kind of cars we own. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I want to also really reference a very interesting study done by Dr. Chia Jung Se, who's now a business school professor, and she's a pianist. She's really done a lot in the world of classical music, and she did this study where she showed non-musician participants short clips of top three finalists in 10 international music competitions and asked them to guess which finalist had won. Some of the participants watched silent video clips, some heard sound only, and some got both audio and video. And she found that sound was merely a distraction. Participants who saw silent video clips chose the correct winner at a significantly higher rate than either participants who heard only sound or those who got both visual and sound. And to me, that's really scary. She repeated this experiment with actual musicians, and she found the same thing. 82% of them said sound mattered most in their evaluations, but they found the same results. So this shows the degree to which, I guess, musicians and non-musicians alike have a visual bias when we're evaluating music. And I think that that's scary, and I would also want to question it because I listen to music constantly, like probably 8 to 10 hours a day as I'm working and doing anything. And very often I don't know who the artist is because it's just like autoplay algorithm playlists on Apple Music or whatever. And I just save the music I really like, and I'm not seeing anything. So I do wonder how this bias plays out in live performances, and this takes me to the question of gender and visual bias. So essentially, the month that I'd met Rajakumari and Astik and so on was March 2019. And this was my very first DJ gig at Box Out Wednesday, which is a well known event by Box Out FM, the first South Asian electronic music radio. Before this, I had been DJing at college parties for a year and a half, and I'd been hanging out a lot with Coven Code, which is a female DJs collective in Delhi, in the hopes of getting more opportunities to play and just really take it up. So this was my very first music gig. It was exciting, it was thrilling, it was a big opportunity. I was not trained on the CDJs, I'd been using virtual DJs, so my technical music skills weren't perfect. In fact, they weren't even really good, but I trusted my curation and I trusted my passion. And I was well appreciated by a lot of people who attended. However, because to a lot of the men in the scene, I hadn't really earned this, but because I wasn't releasing any music at the time, there was a sense of how like I did not deserve it, and could be partially my own imposter syndrome, but I definitely felt this huge sense of judgment and pressure to prove that I deserved this stage. And a very interesting thing about the scene is that who can access electronic music in India, right? That's a question we need to ask, and it is people who have exposure, um, and who've had exposure to Western culture or travel or experiences and language that can sort of justify this taste. But also, there's a lot of more middle and lower income folks in India, a lot of boys, especially in tier two, tier three cities, who make absolutely banger electronic music. But because of how they speak and how they look and how they show up, they don't have the same class aesthetic to enter club spaces and to occupy such stages because they're really excluded from opportunities. And when people like myself who know how to speak and present themselves and are very passionate and authentic get opportunities sooner, what I observed was that these boys would get very resentful and start hating women, which I see why the class piece is so um, brutal and unfair, and that turns into real misogyny and sexism. And I spoke about this in an article where I was just briefly interviewed. This is for the Indian Music Diaries. It's referenced here, where I, well, initially recall my family's hesitation about my safety as a female DJ in Delhi. And then I speak about how the thought at the start of my career, men thought I was hitting on them when I'd asked for support, and it made me feel really uncomfortable and sexualized. Many doubted my capabilities when I got gigs. Um, and really, what I think the answer to a lot of this is that we can't counter class inequality with sexism, which is what a lot of the real hatred for women is coming from. Because I think women are getting gigs sooner and whatever, not for good reasons, but because they're sexualized, and being sexualized is honestly not a compliment. Um, so there's a huge problem of elitism and accessibility. Women are being deeply sexualized, and then they're being hated for getting opportunities because of the sexualization, and so we're all losing. So can we solve for gender and class liberation both? Can we have more class equal spaces for artists, emerging artists, um, at all spaces of the social and economic spectrum, and give women fair opportunities, and fair access to opportunities to learn and train and really express themselves authentically without being sexualized and hated and so on. So that's a question that I want to throw into the Indian scene, and I hope to make a change there as I grow in my activism and scholarship and my skills as a leader. But back to my journey. So because of the, I guess, high skepticism that I received when I started out, and I was creating a lot. I was making rap, and I was making remixes, and I knew I was onto something. Of course, I started producing not long much after that gig, and I released my first EP called Fresh Grad. This was featured on a Rolling Stones India article, and I will play a small section of a song that I made called Gori Samay, which I believe is somewhat of a fusion track. So I'm just gonna play a section very quickly. Yeah, so this track does have a short section where I put in a Bollywood sample. It just goes la 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 la, like a very old Bollywood movie, and it uses an instrument called the ney, which is, I believe, a Middle Eastern instrument, and there's a drum and bass beat going on, which is exciting. So yeah, this is my first EP. Did a few gigs when I launched this, and it definitely made me feel like, yeah, I know how to produce. And it's been, I guess, 6 years since I released this, and I've been producing quite a bit since. Haven't been releasing a lot, but I have been producing, and let me feel a lot more deserving of occupying these spaces when I do. Um, since then, I've done several gigs. One that I'm really proud of was that I was a resident at the Stonewall Inn in New York City for a whole season. This was after I moved to the US for grad school. This was a environment of course, very high prestige in terms of the Stonewall Inn is a historic landmark monument which really spearheaded the Pride movement. It started, with the Stonewall riots, and has such rich history, and just feel so honored to have played here for a full season for a packed, sold out party. um, I'll play like a very, very small clip of me performing here, but this was during fall of 2023. And being a queer woman growing up in India as a creative child in a culture very hyper obsessed with linearity and professional stability, I think this was a very landmark moment in my life. I couldn't find a lot of other videos. I mean, there's a few, but this is one I put up. And then Tagmo is a mithai or an Indian sweet shop in New York City where I was the DJ for their Sapphic Desi speed dating event, and many, many more such queer pride coded performances that I've been doing in the city for the past few years. Um, and then another gig that I'm pretty proud of, and it's recorded, so there's a link here, was where I played a lot of world music and blended it with house. And I think this one artistically really just spoke my language. This was at Wonderville, which is a bar arcade in Brooklyn. This was also a packed room of not sure how many, but definitely somewhere between 70 to 120 people. And it's a beautiful, beautiful set that I often go back to. Now I want to talk about another artist who I really, really love, which was Fortet. Um, Fortet has Indian roots. He's like Bonobo, also from the UK. His mom is part Indian, I believe, and he does a lot of sampling of Indian ragas and Indian tunes and Indian instruments. And to me, he's really just has been a huge guru for me the past few years. He's half Indian on his mother's side, and his music finds him considering his roots. So he's just phenomenal. I'm gonna quickly play one of his, like, maybe 10 seconds of his tracks, although this one. I mean, this hits like something else when it's live. I've seen him live thrice at this point. I feel so fortunate to be here and live here and be able to see him and just be in his element. But what's really fascinating is that in 2025, he curated this thing called Fortet and Friends. And this was a life changing event for me because, as you can see, if you look at the May 28th side, if you look at the names of these artists: Fortet, Hamdi, Jyoti, Mala, Arushi Jain, who I met, Balti, DJ Rekha, Kriti, Mera Bhai means my brother, Naisha, Nikki Nair. All of these are Indian artists, and it's absolutely crazy to me how there's an entire stage dedicated to Indian artists at this absolute world famous electronic music legends weekend. Um, and so, of course, I was at this stage so happy and so just like my mind was blown because a lot of these artists I have seen them from day one. Like for the last 6 7 years I've probably been tracking their journey. I've known them when they were really tiny. Naisha, for instance, who has a song with Fortet and Skrillex that she's rapping in Hindi. I mean, she's really rapping in Hindi on a song by Fortet and Skrillex, and to me, nothing screams dream more than that experience. Here's a little video of me just dancing, watching Naisha live.
Talk to me. तुम्हारी तो बताओ है अकेली बात हमारी जैसे सुलझे पहेली तेरे ख्याल में है.
So this experience inspired me so much because having tracked the journeys of these artists, I was like, wait, if they can get here on stage with Fortet, what stops me? I can be here in a few years. I'm making music. And there was such a deep level of joy and connection and just really a spiritual, euphoric time for me the week that I attended this particular show. And there's studies that show and they confirm dance music's edge in boosting cognitive health, easing anxiety, fostering resilience, especially when it's communal and rhythmic, like an EDM song or a live set. In those hours, we're mentally woven into a living tapestry of sound, and our innate hunger for connection is finally sated. And that's what that week was for me. I could not stop bopping and just flowing. It was something else. And it led to the culmination of this single, which I'll be releasing in a month, called Itafaq. The poster does not reflect the correct spelling, and this is an artist called Astha. She's a singer, friend of a friend who I met at a party. Itafaq means coincidence. So I attended this Bonobo, this Fortet concert on Sunday, May 14th, and Astha and I met literally the next Sunday, May 21st. and we sat down, we made this song. This is the final poster. We've been working on it for almost 6 months now, and I will now play a section of it.
Hit the fire, baby, try. Hit the fire, baby, try. Coincidence in a parallel world. Why are you here? Why are you now? Why would we go out of our slow prisoners? No plans at all. Hit the fire, made it hit the fire, made it hit the
I had produced this song with us as input. She's the singer. I rapped as well. There's a small rap section by me. So yeah, this song will be released hopefully by mid or end March 2026, which is soon. I am super excited for its release. I'll be doing a lot of promotion activities and have been for a while now. But yeah, so Itafaq will be out very, very soon. And this is really my love child from Fortet's high energy inspiration concert. This past year, I've been collaborating a lot more. So life in Harlem, right? So I live in West Harlem. It's where I went to school. And ASAP Ferg, a very, very, very famous rapper, is from Harlem. I met him a few months ago at a Buddhism session where he spoke about meditation, Buddhism, and hip hop. ASAP Ferg is from Harlem. His cousin is Hunter, who's very prominent and present in my Buddhist practice. And Tavi, who I also know from Buddhism, has been a collaborator with Ferg. He's the producer and mixing engineer and the mastering engineer in Ferg's latest album. So Tavi and I also collaborate when we have to perform for our Buddhist meetings. I played a short clip of us just doing a cover of a rap song that Tavi had produced for our Buddhist practice. I'm on guitar here. There's some parts where I sing along. Tavi's on the keys. Yeah, so living in Harlem is an amazing opportunity really to collaborate. There's another artist who I met locally through my Buddhist practice called Bread or Lord Bread, and he came over once. We cooked beats. He was rapping. I produced on the spot.
This what? They ain't know it's going down like this what? We get it in the town like this what? Gotta do it for my one. Know we doing something big slice, not the little one. Know we doing something. Keep an umbrella, keeps the rain come. Keep an umbrella, keeps the rain come. Big slice, not the little one. Know we doing something. Cooking up. Yeah. Set. Moving like the wind, cause I'm down to win.
Yeah, so being in the mecca of hip hop in the city has so many beautiful elements, and I really hope to immerse myself even deeper, collaborate with more artists, and really do justice to the opportunity that I have of being here. Another little collaboration I did with someone called Sam, who I met through an app. He also went to my school. Made a very synthy electronic music track with him, also up here in Harlem. Did like section of the drums, some melodies, harmonized. So yeah, those are my like life experiences of engaging in hip hop and electronic music in India and the US. I want to now talk a little bit about the actual direct links to scholarship in the field. So while I was trying to do some of my research, I found a lovely project by Dr. Kevin Shorner Johnson, who's the director of music education at Elizabethtown College. He has a whole project on music and peace building. It appears so far that this is a podcast series, and his scholarship focuses on the intersection of peace building and music education. As a teacher, he's applied his interest in ethics, spirituality, and peace building to approach music coursework in ways that are rooted within an Anabaptist heritage of peace building, international community, and ethical discernment. I definitely plan to reach out to Dr. Kevin Shorner and just deepen my link between lived experience as a musician as well as my scholarship in cross cultural peace. Um, there's also several peer reviewed studies that have been published on the impact of musical peace building in the Journal of Peace and Conflict, where I've also been a reviewer at different points because this is a peace psychology APA journal, I believe. So, yeah, music performances are frequently used in peace building initiatives. Can performing music together indeed change interpersonal and intergroup perceptions of the other as the enemy? Using contact theory as the framework, the authors hypothesize that the specific mechanism of listening during active music making helps to establish positive affect intergroup contact. So yeah, uh, there's quite a bit of scholarship on the topic, and I think the authors found that repeated participation builds the necessary trust for a new common group. Because participation is mostly driven by career and performance motivations, we argue that peace building through music performance may help overcome common selection bias in research on contact theory. So, well, that's something interesting to look at, especially given my experience in collaborations. Um, and there's been this large meta review as well, where there's more direct links to music and peace building. I think this particular one, a scoping review was conducted with 34 studies from 2013 to 2023. Inductive content analysis displayed geographic diversity with a specific focus on areas of past or present conflict. Five categories of interconnectedness between music and peace building were identified: music supporting understanding between different groups, music forming narratives to build peace, music building peace within community settings, music integrated into educational frameworks of peace building, theoretical viewpoints on the interconnectedness between music and peace building. Uh, so I do hope to dive much deeper into these studies. And thank you so much for listening. This is being recorded post my actual presentation at MBBI, so it's just me and therefore cannot take many questions right now. But thank you so much for listening, and please reach out to me if you have questions or if you'd like to collaborate. Thank you.